My name is Terry Lynch. I'm with Oregon Ufology. I found myself searching for a passageway one day. And that passageway leads right across the complete section of the Cascades, which I'm sitting in front of at the moment. On top of Blind Peak. I want to make sure that everybody sees the type of things that we find in the process of research for ufology. I have located a couple that's sitting here on the top of Blind Peak. She's facing south. He's facing north.
The Middle, Cascadia Guides, a Let's production, in conjunction with Alien Strand Films.
Coastal Bend in Corpus Christi, Texas. And you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. Buying or selling, visit me at kellygreenrealtor.com or visit me on my Facebook page, Kelly Green Realtor. See you there.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Don Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. Yeah, it's going to be a good one today. You know, I hope you guys have been catching up to all of our podcasts now that Spotify has opened up the floodgates for us and we're starting to actually get a lot more downloads. So thank you guys for listening there on our Spotify. You can catch us on 26, 27 platforms, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, we're everywhere. You could even ask Alexa, she'll play you some Alien Strand podcasts. So, we've had a lot of things going on lately, especially on Alien Strand Podcast. Of course, you guys were listening to the beginning of this monologue, the little introduction to the middle. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, please go check that out. It's on Amazon Prime. We have just now got our 12th platform channel already for The Middle, the movie. It's our first documentary that we shot here for Alien Strand and Ledge Productions. And thank you guys for watching it and actually putting it out there. You know, everybody around the world is watching this documentary because it's a brand new find of Mr. Terry Lynch out there in Oregon, you know, and it's something that we brought to the table that nobody's ever seen before, right? So, and it has to do with extraterrestrials, spacecraft, and, you know, UFOs and all that good stuff that comes along with it, right? So please go check out that movie, The Middle, Amazon Prime. If you don't want commercials, you know, it's only $2.99. Come on, it's cheap. Real cheap, guys. You know, you can buy a bag of chips and a Coke for that much. You know, so if you guys have a chance, check that out. You know, check out all our past podcasts that we've had as well. You know, we had number 89 before this one was Alien Abductions. You know, I hope you guys got a lot of information off that last podcast that we had on Alien Abductions. The only reason, you know, I kind of bring it back a little bit every once in a while. I'll bring back some other stories, you know, or that kind of coincide together with this. The only reason because, you know, it all comes together. Sometimes we end up forgetting because we're too busy and we're focused on a lot of things that are happening up in the sky, on videos and things like that. So we never get into the depth, right? So that's what Alien Abductions was about, right? And that was number 89 before this podcast. And, you know, speaking of alien abductions and all the things that come along with it, we're going to have the part 2 to The Middle. So you have to watch the first documentary, The Middle, in order to see the second one, right? Because we end it where the new one is going to start. So the new documentary is going to be called The Middle 2 CE3, right? And this is going to be about a lot of people that have had extraterrestrial contact of some sorts, and some actually have witnessed them face to face, right? So that new documentary we're going to start shooting at the beginning of June, right? It won't be available till probably Christmas, December, or sometime around there, and it's going to be a 3-part series. So, and that has a lot to do with the alien abduction, so that's why I kind of came back to it, talked about it, so you guys can get a lot of things that happen with, you know, sleep paralysis, all that, you know, the sense of presence, loss of time, things like that, you know. So please check back on that podcast. You know, today's podcast is number 90, Sky Sounds. You know, I wanted to bring that to you guys' attention because you never hear too many people talk about it. We see it on TikTok, we see it on Facebook, we see it everywhere. People posting these videos of these sounds in the sky, right? And we're trying to figure out, okay, where is this coming from, man? You know, and then after this podcast today, we're going to have number 91 with Mr. Paul Gorman, right? So he sent me a book, and he's going to be a guest on our show, on the audio podcast. He sent me a book called Mysteries, Prophecies, and the Hollow Earth. All right, so he ends up talking, you know, a few chapters in there about, it's not a real thick book, but, you know, it has a lot of information that he wrote, probably about maybe under 200 pages, put it to you that way. It's a great read, and we're going to be talking to him. He's the author of that book, and, you know, he has a lot to say about it. But coming back to, you know, this sky sounds, right? So at the very beginning of this podcast, you heard the noises, the sounds that people were getting up there in the sky, right? You know, they're trying to figure out, okay, where's this coming from? First, people thought that, you know, they were a train or something in the distance. But then you have these areas to where there is no trains, right? And they were grabbing all these sounds, and it sounded like it was coming straight from the sky, right? And, you know, these things were not just happening in the United States, they were happening in Australia. And Australia was getting a lot of these sounds. Of course, Dead Center in Allen, Texas, they were starting to get these sounds as well. You know, and people were just kind of scratching their heads, you know, saying, okay, so what is this? Is this an alien spacecraft? Is this something in the distance somewhere else around the planet that's the sound is just catching up to us that we can't figure it out, right? And I'm gonna give you a lot of information on what these things it's possibly be. You know, there's some scientific, you know, terminology to it. And that's one thing about Alien Strand Podcast. You know, I don't talk in too large scientific terms and things like that, because who talks like that, man? You know, we all talk normal. I like talking to you guys in a normal level basis, like if we were talking to each other in a conversation, right? So, you know, that way we can all understand. So I keep it plain and simple, and I keep it to the point, and that's what I'm about here at Alien Strand. Of course, I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, you know, and you know, I always keep this podcast to where you guys can understand exactly what I'm talking about and what's going on in the world and what the information that I found out. Okay, so you know, these sounds that come out of the sky are just, it almost sounds like something out of a sci-fi, you know, movie. You know, things that are these howling sounds. They people have said, you know, a lot of folks, of course, in the religious background aspects, you know, they say, okay, you know, they sound like trumpets. You know, God's coming. Somebody, you know, they say Jesus or whatever, the Messiah. You know, they hear these words, right, or they hear these trumpet sounds, and they get flagged with that right away, right? So this is what a lot of people start thinking right away. You know, do we know that? Probably not. You know, right off the bat. So even the scientists are scratching their heads about this one, because they haven't started hearing these sounds until here recently, right? Of course, none of them have ever been recorded like they are now. You know, and our bodies as human beings, we have like a normal frequency of our natural body, right? So it's like a resonance that we have with our human body. You know, the electrical, you know, aspects of our souls or whatever, it fires up, right? And we give off a frequency, believe it or not, right? So our frequency, we have a natural human frequency, and it's about 7.5 hertz. So this is what they've studied on the actual frequency of the human body. You know, it can be, you know, to where, you know, it's they try to just kind of figure out, okay, so we know the body gives out an energy, it has to give out some kind of frequency. So that energy is that frequency. And it says that if you're sitting in a posture position, you know, that it's generally around 4 to 6 hertz. And this is the natural frequency of the human body, you know, because we pick up things, right? As humans, we vibrate within ourselves, right? And a lot of gurus have talked about this. You know, a lot of people up North Asia, you know, the Buddhists, you know, they always talk about your inner you. You know, they talk about all these things, right? Because they already knew about the human body and how it resonates a frequency. Because they can tone themselves down. You know how they make that noise, the sound, where they resonate within themselves to kind of connect with the world, right? So this is what they're saying, that our bodies are giving off this frequency. Now, of course, we all have hearing. Most of us do, yes, and you're blessed to have it. And because if not, you wouldn't be hearing this show. You know, a lot of people, you know, they don't get to have that privilege. But our hearing range and our frequencies, you know, are different, and they range in different levels. You know, from the human body, you know, gives us about 20 to 20,000 hertz, right? And this is what we hear on a normal level. And you'll see that like on a lot of headphones. When you buy headphones, you see it. It'll say 20 to 20 hertz, to 20,000 hertz, right? So, and this is because this is your audible things that you can hear, the low tones and the real high crispy tones that we're listening to, right? And I'm giving you a little information on the human ear, because there's a lot of things that we're hearing in the sky, and it's all these things kind of come together as we're listening and to these sounds that are coming from space or from our atmosphere, right? And you know, it measures in different ways. You know, like dogs actually have a 64 hertz to 44,000, right? So theirs is a little different. That's why the dogs can hear from distances, long distances. And on our documentary, The Middle, you know, I put what dogs can hear at, and why they go crazy when they hear this sound. Now, a lot of times when there's a craft hovering over a home or in the general vicinity of the area, dogs will go crazy, right? Because they're hearing these low audible sounds that they can hear, but we can't, right? So these are the things that we need to understand what we're able to as human beings next to animals such as, of course, a dog, right? A sheep can hear at 125 hertz, right, up to 42.5 kilohertz. So these their ranges are so much different, right, than what we are. But it seems to be that dogs, out of all the animals, dogs have the best hearing out of all of them, right? This is why they are able to understand when there is a UFO, UAP, or anything close in the area that throws them off, because they can hear that humming sound that we've talked about before in prior podcasts, right? So it's just crazy how they're able to pick up these ranges with their frequencies, right? A cat, let's just say a cat, they have 45 to 64,000, right? So theirs is a little different, than a dog's. A cow, 23 to 35,000. Now you see how the ranges are different, and this is just because we're all different, right? But our ranges of hearing are what we are able to take from everything that we hear in the sky. So the trumpet sounds, or the things that we're hearing that you heard earlier in the sky, it was a video clip. Actually, it was caught in May of 2015, because I noticed that around 2015, around that area, we started hearing these sounds a little bit more and more, and they were coming out a lot more on videos and audio and things that people were catching up in the sky. So and they were actually just kind of like, okay, what is that sound? It says that there was a lot of people even in Germany hearing these sounds that you heard in the very beginning. They said that there's a video showing like there's a young child, kind of frozen in fear when they hear this strange booms in the sky, right? And that was in Germany. So they were just trying to figure out, okay, where does this come from? And then in Canada, these sounds were coming out of the sky, in June 19th, 2013 at 9:30 a.m., right? But they said that these sounds were not quite as intense, okay, as it was in Germany. So this is around the same time that these things were happening, right? And where people were hearing, and then it's just crazy how these sounds that are coming from the sky, scientists were scratching their heads. They couldn't figure it out. Okay, well, what's happening? Where is this coming from? Right? And NASA they call it background noise. That's their terminology of the sounds that we're hearing. And they're saying that NASA is saying that it's Earth's natural radio emissions, right? But they are real, of course, right? And that most of us aren't aware of them, that it happens. But this is the scientific world where they try to, explain things that sometimes can't be explained, right? So, I do a lot of stories on ufology and backstories, and a lot of people don't hear a sound sometimes, or they'll hear a whoosh or a swooshing sound. But as far as these noises, like a trumpet or a train hitting its brakes overhead, where do these sounds come from? And like I said, NASA is still trying to figure it out. They got physicists on it. Everybody's just trying to figure out what this noise is. And one of them says, our ears can't detect radio waves directly, but we can convert them into sound waves. And with the aid of very low frequency, VLF, that's what they call it. We're like a radio receiver, and they're trying to say, okay, we're like an antenna. Human beings are like an antenna. This is what I talked about at the beginning, right? We have a frequency. that we pick up. Sometimes from a few hundred hertz to 10 kilohertz, and that AM broadcasts, remember the AM radio, and people still listen to it. I still listen to the AM radio, and it's a higher frequency. It's about 540 kilohertz to 1.7 megahertz, right? So this is a totally different kind of frequency that, you're trying to, that's in the air, in the airwaves, right? So they're trying to say that, possibly sounds, like we are making these noises, like let's just say lightning, it crackles in the sky, right? And we hear it again and it travels, and they're saying it's traveling, right? And throughout its travel, that it's making its way through this pocket of air. And this pocket of air is traveling all the way around the world. And it could be in different, kind of like a small wormhole, let's just say, but of air. We've seen them before. They're like dirt devils, right? We've seen dirt devils kind of spin. Well, this is what they're saying, that's in our atmosphere, or below the atmosphere, really. And that these sounds are traveling in that sense. But they're large. It's a large kind of tunnel that this sound is kind of emitting these noises from, right? They say the ionosphere and the surface of the earth is a natural waveguide for VLF signals, right? So, in between those two, this is where they're starting to hear anything. Now, are these noises coming from space? Well, the scientists say that in space, there is no sound, because space is in a vacuum. It's in a solid vacuum. But there are just little fragments of sound that can get through. Like, in other words, like when a star explodes, or something emitting this sound from 10 million years ago, and it comes through like light, right? And they're just trying to figure out, all these people from NASA and from these space programs, and because people turn to them first, because they're looking. Where do you look when you hear those sounds? You're looking straight up at the sky, right? Okay, so if our planes aren't doing this, then what is? And it's just, what do they do in this sense, right? To try to figure out where this noise is coming from. Is it a UFO? Is it something large that we can't see with our eyes, that is above us and making this noise? A lot of the sounds from space, of course, what I was talking about earlier, that they're called universal harmonies, so that what they try to do is they try to grab these sounds from space, and they teamed up with an astrophysicist and a musician, and they kind of made those sounds into tones to where you guys can, or us, we can hear these sounds, right, as they come through, and they're able to record them. But this is in space. This is not even, hasn't even hit our atmosphere yet, right? And it says that, of course, space is in a vacuum. So where do you think that these sounds are coming from? If space is in a vacuum, and this sound is emulating over us, it can't be coming from space. In other words, from outside of our atmosphere. It's got to be inside of our atmosphere, what I'm trying to say here. So what if there's a craft up in the sky that we can't see? It's cloaked. I show them all the time on Alien Strand podcast. You see one in the middle. There's one coming out of a cloud. What if they're making these sounds? strong possibility. And this is what we're trying to figure out overall, right? Like, exactly, what is this? And why? Now, do they see strange phenomenon after or during these occurrences of this sound? You know, before all this started, there was actually a story. A large report in a town called Euclid, Ohio, who reported seeing mysterious lights hovering over Lake Erie, Cleveland, right? They said the light, they say, was bright and lasted for hours. And it stayed near the horizon. It changes colors. They say, and it keeps coming back around the same time. And it comes back to the same spot every night. And people were just wondering, is this something from another world? You know, they said, okay, is it Venus or something? And this is in 2015. This is around the same time that a lot of these sounds are coming up from the sky, right? You know, it's kind of strange how once something starts getting recorded, as far as these sounds or videos or things like that from the sky, people start recording them more and more after this, or there's more witnesses, right? So in my last podcast, I talked about how you should report these. Every incident that you see, report it somewhere. Just report it. So that way we can have the data, right? We can put things together and try to figure out, okay, when they heard these sounds in the sky, was there a craft nearby? Was there a craft spotted in the vicinity within 100 miles? Was it a craft spotted within 200 miles at the same time? Right? This is why it's so important to any sighting that you have to document it and document the data to any organization that will take your information, because people can always go back, like myself, and put two and two together, right? Like we did before. I've had a lot of aha moments, especially with the podcast stories, where I put 2 stories together, 3 stories together. A lot of times, you know, not a lot, but every once in a while, 2 or 3 stories will have the same extraterrestrial, but in different timelines. We're talking one from the 40s, one from the 70s, one from the 90s. You know, but the same extraterrestrial, right? And this is why the data we were able to connect the dots to what happened to these people at the time. Now, I know we tried to communicate with extraterrestrials back in the 1970s. We had the Voyager, right? And what they did was on Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11, they both carried like a metal plate. It looks like a almost like a symbol of a drum set or a disc. And each plaque had identifying their time, the place of origin, and it had everything on there for people to find, maybe in the distant future, or extraterrestrials out there. And they placed them in there like a time capsule, if you didn't know this already. They wanted to communicate to extraterrestrials. And it's in a 12-inch gold-plated copper disc containing sounds and images. And it's selected to portray the diversity of life and the culture of Earth, right? So we were calling extraterrestrials out here in the 1970s. They were sending them a signal like, hey, we're here. You know, could they have gotten this message from Voyager 1, Voyager 2? And this was released in 1970. You know, and they let these things float out there. So now those probes, because they have no control over them, they kind of randomly generate on their own. So in other words, every once in a while, they'll send a signal back and forth. And they say there's a problematic data that's coming from the so-called, there's an altitude, articulation, and control system, the AACS. It's on board this satellite probe, right? And they say it changes the position of it in the vehicle in space, but it keeps the antenna pointed towards Earth, which allows it to send data home, right? And that's what it does. And each signal or anything that it transmits takes 20 hours to arrive to Earth. So we were still trying to communicate to extraterrestrials out there, right? Or even not just that. They just wanted to kind of send a message out there because they knew they weren't going to get these satellites back. You know, Voyager 1 is 14.5 billion miles from Earth. And both Voyager 1 and 2 have been gone almost 45 years. That's a long time. But how do we get back to the figuring out exactly what's above our skies as far as the sounds? What are these things? What is this sound that we're hearing since 2015? Is this a message from them? Or is it just us making these sounds ourselves? And it's just radiating around the planet in a sense. The sound is just traveling hundreds and thousands of miles, and it's just gaining strength as it goes, right? Almost like the butterfly effect, right? They say if a small butterfly swings its wings, the wind from it 1,000 miles away or so would be even larger than it was when it first started. Changes, right? There's a possibility that we're doing this sound ourselves. accidentally. Have you ever wondered the sound of a jet that makes the sonic boom, right? That real boom sound. Have you never noticed that from that sonic boom, usually, maybe after a day or so, let's just say you went to an air show and you saw a lot of these sonic booms, a lot of things that were happening. Usually, it would rain. Did you ever notice that when you were reading your history about wars, that when they fired all these days, these cannons, everything that happened, these booms that they were doing, that it rained? It caused it to rain? Did you ever have that aha moment? In war movies, you always see it. It's constantly raining. In real life, when you go back into the footage of the National Archives, when they're battling, it's raining. Do these sonic booms change atmospheric pressure, allowing clouds to form and to rain right after? Do you believe that? This will give you something to think about, that's for sure. And what I'm trying to say is that it's a possibility that if we can cause these sonic booms and cause a rain cloud, let's just say a day later, hypothetically speaking, that we're possibly making these sounds ourselves. It's just traveling through these tunnels. That I spoke about earlier. You know, will they ever figure out exactly what these sounds are that are coming from the sky? And they asked, so what is really causing this noise, right? So they've been trying to debunk it. Of course, as scientists, they say it's natural causes from earthquakes, tidal waves, methane explosions, even shifting of sand dunes, right? Because they say that the possible reasons for the audio oddities, right? That's what they're saying. Dr. David Hill, U.S. Geological Survey scientist, said that small earthquakes below the surface can transmit a sound of the earth cracking. He also said that emissions could come from meteors. Other theories include electrical power lines, electronic magnetic radiation, high pressure gases, wireless communication devices, and submarines. And I'm going to save this best one for last, right? The reverberating mating call of a male midshipman fish. So this is what they're trying to say that these things possibly are. Now here at Alien Strand, we don't go for that. We think that it's a possibility that this could be possible spacecraft, because it only happens in our atmosphere. So just remember that. What you're learning today is us as humans having a frequency. We're listening to a frequency. There's frequencies in the air. There's no frequencies in space. There's frequencies around our planet. And these sounds are coming within our planet, not outside of it. We already know this. This is what everything points to. So if you kind of think about it, since nobody knows the answer to where is this sound coming from, you make that judgment yourself and say, okay, wait a minute. There's a vacuum in space. It's not going to come from there. There's no sounds in space. Very little. Not enough to make the loud sounds that these people are grabbing from Germany, Texas, Canada, everywhere around the world, right? And if it was to come from space, we would all hear it. And it's only happening in these certain areas. A lot. So just think about that just for a minute. You know, Australia has the one of the highest UFO sightings out there in that country. Canada has a high rate of UFO sightings. Texas is starting to grow just as big as California as far as UFO sightings. And these are the places they're starting to hear these sounds more and more. Not just these places, there's others as well. So you make this determination whether it's alien or whether it's us. And I think one day we'll figure that out. But probably not today. We'll speculate just a little bit. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. A little educational. Yeah, it was. I kind of educated myself a little bit. Hey. I hope you guys got a lot of information from it. I really love, telling you guys what my thoughts or possibility, but I leave that to you guys. It's all up to you. Just like everything I post on Alien Strand Podcast, we're not here to make you believe. That's for you to decide. But I'm glad you stuck around for today's podcast. Catch us on 26, 27 platforms. We are all over the place. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Deezer, Castbox. We're everywhere. Don't forget to go to our YouTube page. Please like and subscribe, okay? We really do need more subscribers on there. If you guys enjoy the content, remember this audio podcast will be on our YouTube channel as well. So if you guys are kind of like going down your audio lists or whatever, you can actually listen to a couple of our episodes there on YouTube. Please follow our Alien Strand Podcast there on YouTube. Click a like and subscribe. Even if you're hearing on Spotify, give us a thumbs up, man. I hope you enjoy this podcast. Please share, tell all your friends. And remember, every single one of these podcasts has a lot of the information. There's links to everything. So if you go down to where it says info, it'll have links. It might not have it right away, but probably within 24 hours, you'll start seeing the links popping up. So you can kind of go back and go and see everything that I was showing you, everything that I researched. It's there in plain and black and white ink, okay? So thank you guys for sticking around today. I really appreciate you guys. I love each and every one of you. And, it's been my pleasure, to be here today. And please follow us, share with your friends. Go watch The Middle, man. You need to go watch this. It's on Amazon Prime and on Tubi TV. It's free there, but you can get some commercials. It's okay. Go watch it, man. Go check it out. That way, when part 2 comes out, you guys are ready to rock and roll and check it out, all right? So until then, it's been my pleasure. You guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
Hi, this is Kelly Green with Realty Executives, Coastal Bend in Corpus Christi, Texas. And you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. Buying or selling, visit me at kellygreenrealtor.com or visit me on my Facebook page, Kelly Green Realtor. See you there.